Hello everyone, and welcome back to the excitement that is Part 2 of Betrayer. If you missed Part 1, then don't worry, because I'm going to recap. If you didn't miss Part 1, then HA! One day you'll learn. Anyway, welcome. We're playing the hardest part of the game, without guns. I feel that I should specify that. This is hard, because I'm just going to get mapped by massive groups of guys who I'm now going to attempt to shoot. Not shoot. Complete opposite of what I was intending to say there. Whoops! But yay and verily, let's get into that recap that I was talking about. So, Betrayer. It's a couple of years old. It's a horror game. It includes actually stealth bits as well, which I'm doing very badly for the reasons that the stealth in this game is equally terrible by the fact that it is it has no way of indicating whether or not you are in stealth, how easily enemies can see you. They can see you really easily, or like not at all, as you will see at various points through this game where during this playthrough someone will spot me from miles away and be like, well, that's a thing. And in other cases I'll just walk into their line of sight and be like, smack, you're dead. That makes the stealth bad for obvious reasons. Just basic design. If you're going to have stealth, you need some sort of indication of how well you're concealed. You need to have some sort of reliable idea of whether or not the bad ones can see you. Yeah. And for a horror-y, survival-y sort of style of things, you may have noticed that I am just going through these guys like butter without even using firearms. This pistol, being just crude, would easily take these guys out with a headshot at mid-range. But we don't need that because my tomahawk, of which I only have one, and then I have to pick it up again, is equally effective at mid-range and doesn't need to reload so fast. But this was one of the main criticisms that I had of the game, and the reason that I decided to play it without firearms in the first place is that these enemies are just not threatening in the slightest. These are the most basic enemies in the game and make up the most, well, for the most part, the enemies for the main game, and they're not particularly good. Yeah, that was a pretty awful description. So besides the combat, there is also other mechanics in that we have an alternate world which we can explore, which is dark and scary and has wonderful atmosphere and all that jazz. And we've also got notes and various things because we're in a lost English colony somewhere in North America. And it has disappeared. We must discover the reason behind it, and we have possessed evil Spaniards who may or may not be undead. I suspect they are from the way that they look. And we also have various corrupted versions of the other factions in the game, which are the natives, who I call Bernie because they're on fire, and the colonists themselves, the corrupted versions of them, which are ash figures who charge at you while screaming like cats, and they're very scary the first time you meet them until you realise that they're absolutely the least threatening monster in the game and the easiest to kill by far. But all in all, the most basic enemy, the Spaniards, who you've just seen me kill many of, are by far the least threatening. Obviously, the start of the game gives you a tutorial in which you one-shot one from stealth. That is part of the tutorial, which immediately kills any possibility of tension or horror from them because you see them as a non-threat. You took them down, literally one-shotted them at the very start of the game. And that's fine if you want to use them as just like a basic combat threat that you can do, etc, etc. As long as you build it up with something else. But the second area, we're introduced to the Bernies, who make a characteristic noise to indicate they're in an area. They're also coloured in a way that makes them more difficult to see. So you get an indication of their presence. You can catch glimpses of movement in the bushes, and this provides you with the sort of context to say that there is something here. But you can't see it, you don't know what it is and how it's going to attack you, and that can be genuinely scary until you actually encounter them and realize that they are in many ways less threatening than the Spaniards because they are more evasive, so they're more likely to run away and more evasive means a lot less aggressive, which means that while the Spaniards will rush in and attack, and kind of give you a chance to get killed, the Burnies do not. And then of course the third one, which is the ash figures, the corrupted colonists. They are probably the scariest at first, because there are these ash figures to indicate that something bad has happened, scattered throughout the first couple of areas of the colony, and then when you reach this section, you encounter the ash figures again, and you go, okay, there's nothing here, and you go in, and then they come to life and attack you. And it's terrifying at first because it's startling and it shocks you, and it was a difference, it was a twist. Suddenly something that was innocuous is aggressively attacking you. And given the fact that, given the period, your weaponry is all breech-loading muskets, etc., etc., you have no way of really fighting back traditionally, because you'd fire a single shot at one of these figures, kill it, but then take, 30 seconds to reload your firearm, which sounds excessive, but you can get upgrades. Like, obviously the better quality weapons have slower reloads and whatnot. You'd quickly be rid of the rubbish musket that you picked up, like the cracked musket, which is just horrible. You'd have better ones which reload much faster, but still slow by the standards of shooters that you may be used to. And the idea is that obviously with these slow reloads and the fact that they make a lot of noise is that they will attract enemies if you use them. So you've got to stealth through and you've got to kill these enemies and try to make sure that you minimize the threat before you go and use your firearms, because that musket or that flintlock are going to make a loud noise and everything's going to be attracted to that sound. Another problem with the stealth, which I realized now talking about that, is the fact that when you fire a flintlock and you kill a guy and no one else sees you, all the enemies hear you and come at you, but they all seem to know where you are, regardless if you shot them and then hid in the bushes, and then they'll still come straight at you, because it seems like if you alert a single enemy or kill an enemy with a loud weapon, all the enemies go into an alert status and they lock on to you. It's just, yeah, it's kind of annoying. Yes, so that would be the first set of guys. And now we transition into the Dark World. Yeah, he's not a threat, that's the thief. This is the first time I think that I've encountered him in this game. You're supposed to kill him, which basically means that you need to come around the corner and then shoot him quickly. Since I'm not using guns, I can't kill him, so I'm just going to ignore him. But these are the basic enemies in the Dark World. And since I accidentally and stupidly sold my charm because I thought it was a duplicate, but it was actually an equipped one, I now do less melee damage, which is going to make this a lot slower. But as you can see, those skeletons are less... they're not particularly horrific either in their design or in their the way that they attack or anything like that. So your initial encounters, especially when you first transition into this dark area, is that it is very scary. It's very atmospheric. The atmosphere, the sound, all of that works together to make this quite scary. Sound effects not quite as bad here as they were in the first area, where it sounds like the entire world is sort of breathing, which is very creepy. And you've got an echolocation ability, which I'm not using right now, but it creates these whispers, and sort of the neutral things out in the dark world create like a softer whisper, whereas there's this sort of deep booming whisper when it's something darker, like there are totem poles which you have to cleanse, and you'll see one of those as we come up into this area here. And both of those again add to the atmosphere, but this is a simple fact that there is nothing out here to be threatening. And when they introduced the second monster, which by the way has the exact same model as the thief that we saw earlier, there is no indication that he's there. He just pops out of the ground at one point and attacks you, and you react by attacking him back, at which point he just dies. There's no build-up or anything like that to make him scary. So the second monster in the Dark World does not really work. Now, coming into this... oh, well, we've got one right here, so you'll actually get to see it. Yeah, he's fast and he's a lot more aggressive, but he's still not that bad. But yeah, there's several things that basically work. Okay, we're gonna jump cut here for a little bit because otherwise it's just gonna be a long walk around the periphery of this thing in order to pick up items, of which, yeah, a large part of this is walking just aimlessly through the forest, which I'm going to try to cut down so you don't have to watch too much of it, but some of it, so you get an idea of what it's like. Here's another totem pole. For some reason, some of these just disappear, and I'm not sure if it's because I killed enemies that were inside its range of effect, and maybe the totem poles summon enemies to them when you first arrive into an area. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly how the totem poles work. Sometimes they cause a lot of monsters to flood the area, and other times they just do that and there's nothing there, and it's kind of disappointing. I suppose it adds an element of randomness, which gives you the idea that you might be like, oh well, in that case I'm not sure if I should be frightened when this comes up. But since the enemies are so non-threatening, there's no reason to be frightened of them, in the case that the totem pole does have something guarding it. So yeah, that's a thing. But, as I was saying, when you first enter this area, there are notes on the ground, and you pick them up and you read them. And one of them mentions that in the dark, the colonists were seeing these giant figures, giant scary figures, who would gather at the edge of the forest and watch them in the darkness before lumbering off. And that's what I meant by the echolocation, by the way. I didn't know that was coming up. But these giant shadowy things which were freaking them out would gather in the darkness and stand around the edge of the colony and look in. And when people went out during the day to look into the areas, there was like dead things, plants withered and stuff like that. And so it actually built up this sort of idea, which they should have done when they introduced the second monster type, to indicate that there was something else out there, so that I could be expecting it, and therefore building up the tension that there is something beyond what I've already seen out there in the dark waiting for me. And I feel like that really would have built up a lot more tension, because it did, because I had assumed that there was going to be a new enemy type, something big and nasty out here in the woods for me to avoid. And I really would have liked it if they had have put out like something big and slow, even if it was just one of them, and it's just out there in the woods, and I have to be extra careful because it's out there somewhere, I'm not sure where it is, and I need to avoid it. Just avoid it. And that would mean that my weapons, like my muskets and things, when I fire them, have a chance of attracting its attention, so that it would not like come running over, but it's going to make its way to the area where I was. And it would just add that powerlessness, which helps with horror, for you to be powerless against these figures that are out there in the darkness, because as you can see here, I am totally just going through these guys again like butter, and it does get me killed on occasion because I totally think, oh yeah, I can handle this, and I'm not going to die because what's going to kill me. But yeah, apart from the fact that the enemies individually are not a threat, in a group, maybe. If there had been something genuinely threatening out here, even if it's just like, the chances of you meeting this bad guy are pretty slim. You don't need to worry about it. I would have liked that. I'd be cool with that. And I really think that it would have made the game better just to have that guy out there. But he's not. It's just the same. It's the same enemy types over and over again, and they are, yeah, they're too easy. At this point, having realized that there is no monster in the forest, which is scary and bad, that I need to be careful around, I'll literally just run around. I do not even bother with the stealth. And even if I was not bothering with stealth, there is still, I'm still less inclined to do. Yeah, that always that like startles me a little bit. I'm not inclined to, God, what was I talking about? God, it was something about stealth. Okay, forget it. I'm running around the forest. Something stealth. The stealth is bad. I've already mentioned this. Let's talk about the other element of the story, which is, well, not element of the story. The story. The story is what keeps you going, because you've got a detective mystery game going on here, in which you gather clues from both the notes and actual physical objects you can pick up. And you find the wraiths that are wandering around out in the dark, who are lost, and they don't know who they are. So you've got to determine from these clues that you find in the notes and stuff to try and figure out who these wraiths are, and then bring them back and discover their story about what sort of junk they've been up to, which has led to the collapse of the colony. And the story is interesting. It's part of the things that I enjoyed it. There's enough of it going on there that when you play it and you see all the pieces come together, it's interesting. But it's not involved, really. What you do is you pick up various items, and then when you have those items, it opens up your ability to not investigate, you just get the next branch in the story. So for example, I talk to this guy and I say, hey, this has happened. And he says, yes, this has happened, and it has relations to this object or this person. So then I talk to that person, they're like, yes, and here's the next piece. And then I go back to that person and I say, here is the next piece, and they're like, yes, here is how the story continues. And so you're not investigating anything. It's not like, whoa, I found this blood pile out here in the forest. What's going on with that? Why is there this old dagger which I found? What's up with this wood carving? It's just like, you found this item, you found this other item, now you may continue. So I would have liked it a little bit, and I feel like maybe it's not a problem, because the story's still good. It's still fine. But yeah, it would have been nice if there was a little bit more involvement. But it's not a detective mystery game. It's a horror game, and the story is just there to sort of establish things. The problem I have with it is that it doesn't seem to. They don't all tie together very well. I feel like there's a bunch of individual stories which are kind of related by the fact that they're all happening in the same place, and that they're not connecting so much to the massive overarching story. Because in the end, and spoilers, in the end, you're not sure if it's got something to do with cursed Indian ancient city. Like, supposedly there's this cursed city out in the forest somewhere, and the English are like, let's totally go there and get some treasure. And the Indians are like, no, don't go there, it's full of evil giants. Evil giant ghosts and such. And it's like, no, we don't believe in that stuff, let's go out there and loot it, because you're superstitious and whatnot. And it is kind of funny to see that side of the colonists being like, you're all superstitious and silly, and then they're going about doing all the superstitious stuff and burning witches and whatnot. So that's, I find, entertaining. But you've got this other thing with witchcraft and stuff, and it's like, is this something to do with witchcraft? Is it something to do with, like, the theme betrayal in the thing? Is it something to do with the Indian ghosts? Are they all related? Don't know. And that's the thing. It doesn't feel like they tied together particularly well. Like in this case, I'm investigating a witch burning and how it came to pass. Yeah, I'm not going to get this thief. Yeah, you need a gun to get those, which is kind of annoying. But I suppose not really that much, because you're supposed to have one. And I've had several which I've just thrown away because I'm not using them. But yeah, the story doesn't really... They don't feel like they tie together all that well. It would have been nice if they had sort of used it more to introduce elements that can be tied together. Like I was saying with the notes saying shadowy figures seen roaming the edge of the woods, which seems to tie in more with the evil giant spirits Indian curse thing. rather than the witchcraft thing, although there's like a hint that someone's been consorting with evil spirits and is a witch and is summoning them. So that also ties in with that, but it's like vague. Anyway, besides that point, it would have been cool if, like that, they had been tying it to a thing so that a new element is like, hey, there's a big old shadow out there that's going to chase you. I've already talked about this. Where I would have liked a big old shadow to be stalking around out there who could chase me about, but whatever. As it is, the dark, scary world is less threatening than the real world, because I'm actually at this point not really doing this to do anything like gather stuff. I'm out here in the dark, picking up notes and bits of rubbish off the ground, because it's easier for me to do it in the dark, scary world where all the horror stuff happens than it is for me to do it in the real sunlight world, because the enemies in the sunlight world are more, not, I guess, frightening, but annoying. They're more annoying. So, yeah. The other thing that I would say is that when I collect certain items is that they have nothing to do with the story, and they seem to have nothing to do with the individual stories that the characters are doing. For example, in this area I'm going to find some wine bottles and wine and something about, like, let the business be done, but you have no idea what that's talking about, and it doesn't seem to come up. I think it's more there to make the colony feel alive, just to say, like, hey, these characters who you're not directly interacting with, because there's a limited number of wraiths and shadows for you to speak with, just going to check with her and see if I have actually finished this investigation. Which, when you have, it does pop up on the thing, but you can also talk to her about it, and she'll say something about it which is very insightful. Which I was like, dang, that's really insightful. You're really smart, and I wasn't expecting that because you're such a young girl. And then I'm like, but you're not a young girl, you're a computer character who was written by an adult who does writing as a profession, so what am I talking about? But here we go, out into the woods. This is why I didn't collect the items in the light world. I do it in the dark world, because you can hear these calls. That's Bernie. I'm pretty sure that I spotted one roaming around somewhere. So it's another chance to see them, because you very rarely see them when they're inert. They're on fire when they spot you. It's like, dang Bernie, you on fire, spotting all these intruders wandering into your territory and such. That was really close. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get spotted soon. I'm going to have to fight a bunch of them. Yep, there we go. So you can see that they like to run away. And, if I had just kept that dang charm, I would have been that much easier to kill these guys. That was terrible. I've got to complain about the tomahawks is, yeah, the tomahawks, they're really fiddly to use, because in most games, when you throw a grenade or a melee weapon or something, you can see it arc, so you get a feel for, like, its range and weight and how it's going to arc through the air. In this game, you can't really see the tomahawk all that well, so when you throw it, it's like, is this going to hit anyone? I'm not sure if I'm close enough yet, or if I need to be further away. And that bothers me, because obviously I'm using it quite a bit. And it's not such a problem if you're using the guns, because the tomahawk is sort of like a last resort. Someone's got up in your face and you need to reload, bam, you just throw it at them. And yeah, it's annoying. But I think it's like, it was never intended to be used as often as I am using it, so probably it was like sort of, it's as far as these weapons go, it's sort of an afterthought. Ugh. Here we go. See, you get spotted very easily, and it's hard to tell, especially with Bernie, because you can't tell which direction he's facing in the first place, as to whether or not you could sneak up on him, because it's so hard to make him out. That was easy, but I wasted a couple of explosives, which I'm not buying, by the way, in case you were wondering. I am totally just, like, finding ones that I pick up off the ground, of which there's always like a couple in the forest somewhere for some reason. Okay, so we've transitioned into area number 4, and I had completely forgotten that this was a section because I was expecting to come to the last outpost town and be that much closer to the end of the game. But I've just realised something. There's a bunch more areas, and time for another complaint. Yeah, the game's too long. It's too long. This area, I'm still going to show, obviously, dealing with the enemies and stuff, as you would. But yeah, this entire area feels kind of unnecessary. And it's mostly because the clues in this section don't really seem to add too much to the story. They do have some stuff which tells you about like the ancient folklore regarding the area and the ancient spirits, which are supposed to be our main threat, but you could have easily shifted those elsewhere and replaced them to replace things like the empty wine bottles that you can find, which have no use in the game. You could have switched those out for something which is important in this area. The mystery here is probably the least interesting one, I feel, at least, because I guessed what was going to happen with these particular wraiths and their story before it had happened. I mean, with the other ones, it's not terribly, like, it's not the most original thing ever, but in this one, you know, at least you're like, oh, okay, well, that's what's going on. In this one, it was like, oh, I see. And sort of, yeah, I'd figured it out prior to it really showing itself. So I feel like this could have been cut, and it feels, especially with video games, it's difficult to say with horror games because you want to make something which has got a sizable amount of content so that people feel like they get their value for money. But with horror games, it's always like it's a fine balancing act, because if they're too long, you get used to the monsters and all the horror is gone. You know, if you play any AAA horror game, they're generally too long, and it's like, hey, I was scared for the first couple of hours, but now I'm not. Now I'm not sneaking around being careful and going, what's around the corner? I'm terrified that a monster's going to come out of that grate. Now you're like, yeah, the monster's going to come out of that grate, out of that ceiling, and they're going to drop down, but I'm just going to shoot them because I don't care anymore. They're just bad guys now. They could be, you know, generic military shooter bad guys, for all I care. Yeah, so horror, it's best in the short form, and Betrayer is a bit too long, especially considering that it isn't really introducing much new. In fact, in this area it feels more like a regression because there are no alternate enemy types that I know of, because I know that there's a couple of enemies that have been added in updates since I actually completed the game, so there is a few new things, which is nice. I know that there's a new enemy type in the light world which I have not encountered yet. Kinda wondering about them because, yeah, if they haven't shown up yet, they're getting closer to the end of the game, so are they going to be a significant threat? That's interesting, and they might be scary. We'll see. Yeah, the closer I get to the end of the game, the more I'm thinking, wow, might actually be in for something. Starting to get a little worried. We'll see if that lasts. Yeah, as I was saying, there's no new enemies in this section. It's all just conquistadors in larger numbers than there were before, but that's not really making them any scarier. At this point, you're used to them, so even if they had been scarier in the first place, I would be in a position where I'm like, oh, yeah, it's these guys. Yeah, accidentally shot a guy there. It's annoying when you pick up a weapon, it defaults the same as melee attack, so melee attack gets overwritten and you accidentally fire the weapon straight off. I'm going to die anyway, so I don't care. I'm going to have to do that section again, and I'll do it without the weapons. Not that it really matters, because at this point, the crude weapons, which you pick up off the dead bodies, do the same amount of damage as melee attack. unless you headshot. But you can also have like high quality ones by now. If you've been playing it right, you either find them in chests or you buy them from the merchant's stockpile. So they would be significantly better quality, but we don't need those. So we're just going to beat guys up. It's all going to be about these bad guys. And I took quite a beating just taking down those guys, but it's easy enough for me to simply run back to the barrel and heal, which is always something of a problem in this game. I'm not sure how I would have addressed it to make it less so, but the fact that the health is so easy to get to, it's not a hindrance, it's not a barrier to progress. It is just like, oh well, now I have to trek back to the healing. Or if there's healing in the area where I am, I'm just like, well, I'm just going to run in blindly and grab that healing and then turn around and hit these dudes. And that's especially added to by the healing charges which you can carry. You can see them above my health bar. I've got 3 of them now. The fact that you can carry a charge of healing is somewhat worse, because if you had just run in to get that healing without having the healing charges, you would be stuck there going like heal and heal, because you'd be accumulating damage. But in this case you can go and heal, and I've got the charges, so I can move out, kill a guy, use the charges, go back, heal, refill the charges again. The charges just give me enough time to get away from the barrel and kill someone before I need to go back to it, whereas if I didn't have them, I'd be just standing next to the barrel healing myself over and over again, and I get stuck in a loop and make no progress. So I'm not sure if they're a good idea or a bad idea. They're certainly make it less annoying that you don't have to make so many back and forth trips to heal yourself, since there tends to be like 1 or 2 healing barrels in like a massive area. So it would, yeah, I suppose it would just be annoying if it were otherwise. And you're powerful in this game. You don't feel like you're like weak and defenseless, and that you're really struggling against the enemies, which is the main base of you know, everything going bad there. Ugh, frame rate dropped horribly, but that's probably the recording software, not the actual game itself, which usually runs just fine if you're not recording. Yeah, I think this big heavy is, yeah, he spotted me, and I'm going to run out and just destroy him. Hey. And with the tomahawk, it's actually pretty easy to take him down, even without the grenades. It's just like more convenient to do it with the grenades, so I have been. Yeah, I think in many ways it stems from the fact that you are powerful, and you can totally just be an action hero in this bit, which I'm doing. And that's the core of the problem with the game. Horror does rely on you being powerless, in both terms of sort of knowing what's going on, and also in terms of your ability to fight back. You can have some ability, but it should be limited. Maybe it would have been interesting if I had been like, you've got like your musket, which gives you a chance to shoot someone, take them out, but its reload is too slow, so you've got to use maybe trapping or something. That could have been cool. Been like, yeah, I'm the forest guy, I'm going to go out in the woods, I'm going to set traps and such, and lure my enemies into ambushes and stuff like that. That could have allowed you to be powerful, but not like directly powerful sort of thing. So that could have been interesting, but it's not. Hello. Oh, that's new. Well, take that, guy. Oh. Oh! Okay, well, like I said, that's new addition. I have not seen that since I 100% completed the game before. And then they added a couple of updates which added more stuff to it. So these pods, I have not seen these. So that is reasonably interesting. I feel like that was a bad indication of constant damage over time, or they were doing massive damage just one shot and stuff. But having seen them, I don't think they would be too much of a threat, because they're static. And it was interesting to put them there near the chest. in order to be like, hey, you can't go near this chest. But I feel like it would have been better if they had and maybe they will, scatter them throughout the woodlands to drive you into areas where there are monsters. That would have been cool. So yeah, we're just going to clear out these couple of peripheral areas. It's not too terrible. Look at that. Wow. Stealthed that guy and he was practically looking at me. So you can see what I mean about the stealth system and how it doesn't feel brilliant. Yeah, like a lot of these peripheral areas, there are such a small number of guards that it is very easy to deal with them. So I've already dealt with like the main area of this. There is another one down by the where is it? Down by the next gate to the next area. There's always a concentration of bad dudes. But again, it's not too difficult to deal with those, and I'll deal with those probably pretty soon. Just rush down there. I'll make a cut so that we don't have to watch me walk all the way across the map to get there. But yeah, at this point, these large maps, because prior to this, it felt like they were more or less, they gave an opportunity to build up tension, which is good in a horror game, because you need those quiet sections, because it's not the constant bang, 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 horror, horror, horror. That's just going to speed up you getting used to it and going, don't care anymore. You need that quiet bit to sort of work yourself up, and these wide open spaces totally give that to you. But now that we're this far in and you're not afraid, it's more annoying than anything else. So that's good. So yeah, we've got just this area, I think. I'm not sure if there was a guy behind him or if he's the main guy on that road. Whatever, if we don't manage to stealth this, who the heck saw me? Yeah, this is interesting. So it was him. Yeah, he's the only enemy nearby in this area. So that guy saw me while I was behind the bushes. I couldn't see him properly, but he still managed to detect me. And in detecting me, he activates every member of his group who now know where I am. So all of these dudes who are up here at this little way station are automatically alerted to my location and come rushing down, which you could explain away with the fact that they're supernatural possessed bad guys, but you know, whatever. This is a good opportunity to demonstrate the fact that they are like bloodhounds, that they never give up, which is a thing that, again, stealth games, you've got to have that less realistic feeling where you can run away and hide in order to reset the stealth. You can't in this, which is, you know, since it's not a pure stealth game, fine, you screwed up, now you got to fight because you can fight, which a lot of modern stealth games for some reason are also doing. It's like, hey, you screwed up, you can fight though, but arbitrary moral, binary moral systems that you don't. But yeah, you can't reset anything. I think the big guy should be... Yep, here he is. Hey, biggin. Yep, that should pretty much be it. I think we've cleared out this area. That's... Oh, no. Yeah, you are a big threat. Let's get rid of this. Cool. So this is the area transition done. So I've just got to do the dark version of this area, and then we are happily finished with another section. So hopefully I'll get this section and most of the next section done. Because, realizing that I've got this, then another area, then another area, then another area, I'm probably going to have to do this as a three-parter. That's annoying. Because I really just wanted to do two. But I forgot this section existed. Okay, let's get this dark world out of the way so we can press on. It shouldn't take too long. Right, let's go off into the forest. Yeah, this take long or not depends. There's not a lot out here in the dark, but it is spread over a wide area. Again, this area feels quite fillery. So let's see if there's new monsters, because to be honest I don't know if this new monster is in the dark or the light world. I haven't encountered it yet. I think it's in the light, but it could be in the dark. Huh. I think this might be a new enemy type, in the fact that obviously prior to this our bad guys had to rush us like that, but now they're not. So wow, that was awful, and yet somehow I still didn't get myself killed. God, I would have sworn there were more enemies about than that. Oh well, not that I should complain. Let's head back to the barrel. Just cut through here. Right, so we should be heading off to find our first wraith, I hope. Yes, here we go. Take care of that. Oh, hello you. Anyone else? No, you don't want any? Okay. So yeah, he's up here, and then there is another wraith down the hill. But he teleports back to where the bell was, and then there's another wraith up here, but we can't talk to him until we talk to the other two on the other sides of the map, so it sends us around in a big triangle, and it's a pain in the ass. And then there is a totem pole somewhere up here. So, yeah. Secondarily, also, like I already said, this area adds not a lot to the story. It's not adding any new encounters, really, I don't think. Maybe it is, I'm not sure. Just get another totem pole right here. Let's kill someone. There we go. Yeah. You kind of run out of things to talk about when there's no new stuff being introduced. Huh. Totally heard someone coming. Where are you? Nope. Oh well, let's just ignore it. Oh no, I hear you. Yeah, whatever. Let's just get on with the story. So, this is probably the most predictable story of them all, and it's not just because of the way that it's set up and also, you know, stuff. It's also because these stories have a certain rhythm to them, in which it's like, oh, I remember being on the hill, and the dead bodies were there, and I had my pistol in my hand, and I thought, what have I done? And then it turns out later that it's like, yes, what have I done? Because I did not stop a murder from happening. It's like, oh, you thought that I murdered it, and it goes like that for every single story. So by this point you're like, I totally get that this is going to be like, hey, I'm saying stuff that makes me seem like I'm guilty, and if I'm saying that I'm guilty straight off the bat, I'm innocent. And if I say something innocuous like, I just wanted them to look me in the eyes, and I told them, don't worry, because stuff will be better from now on, then they're guilty. So it's like the inverse. Whatever they said first is the opposite of what they were going to say. So in this guy's case, it's like, oh man, did I kill my sister? And it's like, no you didn't. I was angry with her. And it's like, why were you angry with her? We know that she got murdered. We know that there's 3 people involved in this story. Did she get murdered by the other guy? Is that why you were so angry? The answer is yes. Yes, it is. And yeah, it's nice when there's more than one person in an area, because that way, sometimes their stories seem to relate a little bit to one another, so it's like, not directly like, hey, these are all interwoven, but more like, that wraith is also involved in this story, but to a lesser extent. That sort of jazz. But as it is, this should be the end of this story, and that's it for the Dark World, except for the thief. There's always a ghost who's missing its skull buried somewhere, but we won't do that on screen because it literally just involves, hey, go to the far side of the map, talk to me, go to the other side of the map, pick up the skull, then go all the way back again and give it back. So we'll go on to the next area instead. We can do that later off screen. It'll be good. So this should be a fun zone because, as you may have heard those whistles in the trees, Bernie's out and about. And having played this section before, I know that there is a large concentration of Bernies, which simply means that usually that you'll just be wandering around very slowly through the trees and such. It's actually so easy to avoid them if you know what you're doing, which you do. Yeah, non-threats and such. Wow, he's really close, and yet somehow I'm completely invisible in the middle of this opening. Yeah, there's nothing else nearby. I think that we might do the collectathon in the dark. Scary Dark World, because, yeah. Old Bernard, give him credit. He can kill you, especially if there are large mobs of him, which is why the next area is going to be so good. Okay, so there's a little bit of a cut there because I did not realize this is our new enemy type. And he did startle me because he came out of that box and scared me. And then I hit him once and he died. So, good. Good. We waited all that time for that. At least it did give me a scare. Unfortunately, you didn't get to see him jumping out of the box because, yeah. Let's get you. Oh, nope. Oh well. Shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. So we're back into it, and we're going for this water barrel for the singular purpose of the fact that it is good to have a healing spot secured, and there's junk on the road here, which is more myths and legends. They're just really long, those. We don't need to read them. I've gone past these crates. They haven't split open, so I don't think there's spiders inside them. So yeah, that's kind of disappointing. Maybe if you were an arachnophobe, you'd be like, holy crap, that's scary, but I'm an arachnophobe, and I'm not frightened by computerized spiders. Probably because the scary part of them is when they touch you with their legs. Oh! Creepy. So, we're going to leave this footage in, because it is how we make our way through this forest. This forest is just packed full of Bernies. Seriously. It's a pain in the ass crossing through here. So instead, I'm gonna just go up the path, crouching, in the open, in the most open section of land that there is. And we won't go all the way along the path because that would take forever. So we're gonna crouch walk, straight up the hill. Bernie, you are absolutely no threat unless I were to literally walk into you while crouching. That's how easy it is to avoid. So easy. Why you make it so easy on me? I don't want that. So here we go. This is the fort with its various things. Looks like we've got another grenade. Hurrah! Those things are so common. It's not even funny. We've got the arrows about to indicate that they have been attacked by Indians, in case the fact that there wasn't a horde of Indians around, like, you know, was not a thing. I think this is also the last time that we will encounter this enemy. Second and last. Whoa, didn't see you, buddy. So there should be a bunch of them around, but... Oh! Wow. That was awful. But we should have, like, absolutely no problem here. Nope, here comes another bunch. Behind me? Nope, you're in here. So yeah, in this case, like the first lot of these ash statues, who are the corrupted colonists, they would let you get much closer. You know, you would get well into the thing before they're like, boom, we're not actually, you know, scary. We're not actually the benign version of this particular asset. We're the evil version. Attack. But these guys, they attack you like well before you even really see that they're there. So it's like, hey, everyone, I'm here. It's like, oh, okay, let's deal with you. Good. Which is a shame. I mean, if they had gone and sort of telltale things, it would have been better. Okay. So here we go into the dark world. You're like, wow, you just skipped so close there. And it's like, yes, because there's literally nothing else. One thing to note, I've got 2 of the legendary weapons. Because there's a shovel, which you can pick up, and then those dig spots where you couldn't dig previously, they've got legendary weapons in them. I'm not going to sell these because they're legendary, and you can't get them back if you sell them. I'm not going to use them either, but yeah. I just like to have them. Because they're cool. Even though they have, like, no additional models or anything. This musket looks exactly the same as all the other muskets. They could have, like, you know, put some, I don't know, gold detailing or something on there to be like, this is a fancy musket. It's got etching or silver inlays or something on the barrel to make you, like, distinguish it from the common low-quality muskets out there. But instead it's this. I might at some point fire it, just so that you can see how long it takes to reload these things. Because that is one of the important distinctions to make. I also got another axe, so and I've basically went out and I was like, you know what, I'm going to pick up all the chests and pieces of paper, which is reasonably tedious, and I'm going to do that. Where's our last guy? There you are. I'm going to do that in the light world, but I'm not going to record it because it's just small clusters of enemies, and most of it was me crouch walking everywhere and just picking stuff up, because I'm not going to fight Bernard. Because that would just be annoying. But not as annoying as me making you watch me crawl around on crouch walking through the forest. So I didn't show you that. But turns out it's not actually that bad, because they replaced Bernard with spiders in a lot of areas, so you don't need to crouch walk everywhere. You can just run. You can just run, because the spiders initially you're like, whoa, there's a big cluster of them. How dangerous are they? Could I defeat them by maybe walking backwards and swinging my hands? You know, just swinging that knife while I walk backwards, because they only take 1 hit. The answer is yes. Yes, you can totally do that. So, good. All that non-build-up for that. Disappointing. Oops, sounds like the bad guys must be. Really? Did that go through your legs or something? Honestly. You're less accurate than the skeletons. They're really hard to dodge. Tut tut tut, pacing. Now more roaming about the forest. It's just skeletons out here again. Again, seriously, introduce a new enemy. There were plenty in the light world, but none in the dark world, so yeah, and it's still in clusters of like 1 and 2. Ugh. Come on, game, escalate. I know that they do escalate in the next level, so that's something to look forward to, isn't it? So here we've got to wrap up this guy's story. You can read that if you pause. And basically, he's giving us the old, look at how innocent I am and wistful for the days past of yore, because I'm the nicest man. This is like, let's think of him as our main villain. If you played this game for no other reason but to send him to hell, that would be awesome, because he is just like, I'm so evil when it comes out later. Would you like me to spoiler it? Look, in the video here, if you don't want spoilers, he tied his wife to a tree so that she would be eaten by wolves after he sent assassins to murder his one of his daughters because one of his other daughter had gotten pregnant and he didn't want anyone to embarrass him, so he's just like, that's it, gonna murder my entire family. Gonna murder my family, and now I'm gonna cry about it to you and be like, oh, if only they hadn't been, you know, people with their own free will. And that's it for this episode, so join us next time.